Hello everybody and welcome to this GCSE PE bite-sized video, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Paul Catlin, who is the Principal Examiner for GCSE PE Component 2 Health and Fitness. We'll be discussing how you can prepare your learners for this component. So hi Paul and welcome. I know you have a few simple tips that you would like to help candidates to maximise their performance in component 2. What are your tips?
Hi Penny. Yes, I thought today I would concentrate on a few simple tips to help candidates maximise their performance on component 2 by simply reading the question carefully. All of these tips revolve around reading the question, some of which would be relevant for component 1 as well.
Brilliant. And can you go into what's your first tip?
Sure. The first tip is to ensure that where an example of a factor is provided already in the stem of the question, this is not repeated in the answer. This may sound obvious and simplistic, but you'll not believe how many candidates lose marks by doing this every series. For example, in this year's paper, 2023, question 3A, candidates were told that bone structure is one factor that can affect optimum weight. Candidates were then asked to state 2 other factors that can affect optimum weight. Clearly, there is no credit for repeating bone structure, so the remaining 2 answers had to come from the 3 remaining factors: height, sex or gender, and muscle girth. Another tip is to ensure that muscle girth or muscle mass is referenced, not just muscle.
That's a really good tip. And another tip that you have?
Well, secondly, where 2 or perhaps even 3 examples are required in the question, ensure that your answers are clearly different and cannot be linked. Again, for example, from 2023 paper, question 2B, candidates were asked to state 2 emotional health benefits that joining the school netball club could have for a student. Numerous candidates stated stress relief and depression or reduce anxiety, which are all the same marking point and would gain only 1 mark. Similarly, some candidates stated improved confidence and increased self-esteem, where again, only 1 mark would be credited as this is the same marking point.
That's a really good tip, so that people actually give different points. And your a third point?
Thirdly, and possibly this is the most important tip, is to pay attention to the words which are in bold in the question. This tip also applies to component 1 because most questions will have 1 or more words emboldened, which are designed to help and guide candidates to the correct response. On component 2, this is particularly important when there are questions related to the specification item 3.2.2, which states the advantages and disadvantages of commercialization and the media for the sponsor, the sport, the player stroke performer, or the spectator. For example, on the 2022 paper, candidates were told that deviant behavior in elite level sport, such as performance enhancing drugs, has consequences for sport, which was in bold. The candidates were then asked to give 3 consequences of deviant behavior for sport. Consequently, if candidates answered with consequences for the player, spectator, or sponsor, there was no credit. For example, a player being fined or banned or sent off are all related to the player, not the sport. The sponsor loses money is linked to the sponsor. Answers needed to relate to sport itself. The possible answers are on the screen now. You can see that all have an impact on the sport. For example, sport may lose sponsorship money, or fewer people will watch the sport. Another example from the same paper is question 14, 1 and 2, where candidates were asked to explain 1 disadvantage and 1 advantage for, again, sport, which was highlighted. Once again, sport is emboldened, so any responses in relation to sponsor or performer were not credited, such as players earning more money. So responses needed to focus again on sport, such as more income for the sport, which would help provide better facilities or equipment. This would gain both available marks. In part 2, the same applies. Disadvantages such as sponsoring a player creates more pressure, so they feel the need to cheat, was not credited because it's to do with the player. Instead, we're looking for answers such as sport relies too much on sponsorship money, so if it is withdrawn, it would leave the sport in financial difficulty. Or sponsors gain too much control over sport, for example, the timing of matches, etc.
That's really helpful, and I really like those examples that you've given because they are really very specific. And your final tip?
Finally, yes, use the command words and number of marks available for each question to help you. Command words such as state, give, or outline will usually be short one word or one sentence answers worth 1 mark. The marks available are always shown at the end of the question. Command words such as explain, describe, or justify will usually require more detailed responses with linked statements related to the number of marks available, which would typically be either 2, 3, or 4 marks. For example, in this question from the 2023 paper again, question 5, candidates were asked to explain how carbohydrate loading can be used to improve the performance of triathletes. Note carbohydrate loading is in bold to help lead you to the correct response, and the command word is explain with 4 marks available. Consequently, candidates need to ensure that 4 linked different points are made to gain credit. This response gains the full 4 marks available. The candidate refers to tapering of training and increasing carbohydrate intake, i.e. 1 to 4 days before an event. An athlete will not exercise a lot and eat lots of food with high carbohydrate levels. The candidate also refers to increasing glycogen stores and an impact on the race, which is preventing buildup of lactic acid and fatigue. So this response gained the maximum of 4 marks.
That's really, really helpful, Kay. And have you got anything else that you would advise when you're delivering this unit in preparing your learners?
Well, lastly, if you have time at the end of the examination, which as the revised papers are now out of 60 instead of 70 with the same time of 1 hour and a quarter, this should be possible. Look back over your answers. Look at the questions again to ensure that you haven't made any of the errors contained in this presentation. You never know, 2 or 3 silly wasted marks could be the difference between 2 grades.
That's absolutely brilliant. Thank you. So I just want to summarize. Okay, so your top tips are: in your response, do not repeat the question, the words from the question. Use different marking points, and use the words in bold to assist in writing your response, and use a command word, a number of marks to help with the response. Is that a good summary?
Absolutely, yes.
That's brilliant. Well, thank you ever so much, Paul, for sharing your thoughts and offering tips to teachers. And then just on this slide, you can see that I'd like to share links of some resources for teachers, including past papers, mark schemes, examiners reports. And I can't express, the examiners report provides lots of really helpful information and on how the exam series went, offering hints and tips. And I would definitely strongly recommend that all teachers take time to look at these for each individual component. There's also a guide on extended writing questions and a guide on 9 marks extended writing question with exemplar material. And of course, there's also, here's a link to some of the past training that has taken place. Just looking forward, there are some training events coming up this term. One on mark training. It's taking place on the 30th of October between 4 and 6. So if you'd like to register on it, please do so quickly, because I know places are being taken up very fast. We've also got coursework marking training for component 4 for the PEP, again on the 6th of November. If you would like to register then please do so, because places are limited. And then just finally, I hope you found this bite-sized video helpful. If you've ever got any queries, you can always book an appointment with me on a Teams meeting. Here's a link, or you can send me an email at teachingpeandsport@pearson.com. Thank you ever so much for watching, and I hope you found it really helpful. Thank you.